Hi Stacy, this is Jackie, and I wanted to make a quick video to follow up with you and your students that really interesting question on culture and time perceptions and some issues into that research. So some of this might be redundant, but I just wanted to start from the very beginning, which is the college homepage. So from the college homepage, to access the library, again, you probably already know this, you'll click up here on library, and we'll scroll down, and that kind of takes you into the entire library page. We're going to spend most of our time, actually all of our time, in the e-resources tab. That gets us to our databases. But I want to point out two other things that we do have available to you. One is this Need Help 24/7 service. That's actually a 24/7 librarian chat service. So if a student needs help, it's 2 in the morning. I am not here at 2 in the morning, not very helpful at 2 in the morning. There is a librarian in the country. We contract with librarians all over the country who can get a student started, talk to them about their assignment, their research, and get them going into their work. So we also staff this, but a couple hours a week we contribute. I do also want to point out our interlibrary loan service, and I'll show you that in a little bit. If you find yourself doing research and it happens to be really current, it's kind of edge, you might find yourself going to someplace that you're familiar with, which is Google Scholar. Interlibrary loan, I'll just scroll down here. And in fact, I am going to scroll down. Skip step 1 and skip step 2. I don't care. You don't have to do that. My interlibrary loan person in the library, she doesn't care either. If you just go ahead and click here to get to our form. Again, if you find something in Google Scholar, just give us the author, the title of the article, and your info. If you want to paste the citation in here, hit submit. We will request the article from libraries throughout the country. It's a pretty fast service. If you request something in the morning, we usually have it for you by that afternoon. So, but it's usually at the most 2 business days. So take advantage of that. It sounds like you might be getting an early start on your research. So, and if you like Google Scholar, definitely use that. If you want to come meet with me and talk about Google Scholar or any of the librarians, we are happy to do that. I'm not going to cover that in this little brief tutorial because I want to focus on our library databases for you. Okay, so going back to the library homepage. As I mentioned, we're going to spend all of our time in e-resources, and I'm sure you've already been there starting to dig into this topic. So we have two major databases that we use. We also have one called Culturegram. So if you want to do a little background information on some cultures, it's some really just basic information. It can be kind of fun. It usually talks about cultural habits and things like that. But I think we'll probably want to do something a little bit more in these two. And I think Culturegram is pretty self-explanatory. I think the minute you get in there, you might feel comfortable with it. So both EBSCO and ProQuest are kind of what I would call like large, general, kind of Fred Meyer databases. They have a little bit of everything. They don't have necessarily deep specialty research like psychology. EBSCO has a sub-psychology collection, but it's really just part of the entire EBSCO package. What it does when you click on that collection, it just limits all the other information that might come up, which means it could sometimes eliminate interdisciplinary topics that you want. Like this topic is, you start looking at cultural studies, anthropology, sociology. So it does that. Unlike other institutions, larger institutions, that will have some specialty databases just on psychology. Psych Info, for example. Stacy, you may have used that at some point. We don't have it here at Longwalla, sadly. So you can kind of pick either one. When I ask students which they prefer, it seems to go 50-50, maybe 60-40, and that 60-40 positive tends to go to ProQuest. So I will do that one. ProQuest is also available at the public library. It's provided by Washington State Library, so you'll probably have access to this the rest of your life. So if you go to any institution in the state, they're going to have this database. They'll probably have EBSCO too. But this is something that it's good to become familiar with for a lot of reasons. My personal preference is this box here. You can work with it to do what you want it to do, but I really find that for me as a searcher, and I'm just sharing my search habits, I like going to the advanced search. And you can see earlier I was looking at this question of culture and time perception just to see what I could see. And I'm going to point out a couple things. One is, you can see I did cultural with a little asterisk. That's going to allow me to look for the word culture, cultures, cultural, all at the same time. And I said just go with kind of the main thrust of what it looked like you were maybe seeking, which was on time perception. There's other probably phrases that came up, or words like, temporal understanding. But I wanted to go with basic. One thing that could be really helpful is there was an article, a chapter shared, I'm guessing by David Owens, which was a fantastic introduction to this. And the references there is another way to look for information. So if that wonderful chapter has really good references, you can always kind of backtrack and see, let's look at that article too, to kind of help inform, other people in that are studying this particular topic. You'll see on this page, and you may have used this before, there's other limiters. I mean, if I wanted to, I could limit to full text, peer-reviewed, by date. But since we're kind of thinking about keywords right now, and we're not quite sure, my preference tends to be to start broadly, with the most broad search possible. And all those filter options, they'll be on the next page. But I want to get some general idea. If I do broadly like this, I'll be able to see a lot of different ways that this topic is talked about, and it might change my search strategy. So I'm going to go ahead and click search. And I'm going to move my screen a little bit so I can see, whoa, okay, a lot of results, right? Too many results, not helpful. I do want to say you can do a couple things right away. One is, I always say just kind of browsing through these top articles to see if they're even close. Is your search strategy matching what you're looking for? As you can imagine, culture is, as I mentioned a lot of other disciplines. I mean, including culture is often used in biology because you're using cultures and, talk about microbes and that sort of thing. So you might want to see if you're getting a lot of results that are looking at microbes, things like that. You might want to see if there's something that you can do. But sometimes it's just helpful to kind of do a scan through. These results are in order by relevance. So the number of times, or the amount of times the word culture and time perception came up in the results. So it's not by date. You can see, just to help you interpret what a record means. So this is an article title, My Time, Your Time, and Our Time. It actually looks really fascinating. And I can see it came from the Journal of Happiness Studies, which also seems really interesting to me. It was published in June 2019, so it's very recent. This here is the number of pages. Most articles indicate that, so it's 6 pages long. So something to be helpful. This one is looking at time perception. So again, this is the article title. The journal it came from is Adolescence, a whole journal focused on that. I can see it's a bit older, so we're getting maybe some older results here. So something to keep in mind. And one thing that had been mentioned is that recent current research was a little bit was important for this topic and for this class. Current and recent can really depend on the field, so always double check with your faculty member if you are in computer science, medicine, that sort of thing. Current really is often within the last 3 years, unless you're doing some sort of longitudinal study. You want to see changes over time. Again, check with your instructor. I would say for psychology, trying to limit to the last 5, maybe 10 years is probably best. So that's one thing we can do right away. We have plenty of results. We can limit to the last 5 years with the click of a button. So you can see some of these immediately are going to go away. But we found some helpful things. You might find yourself saying, yeah, I actually want to think about searching a little bit more specific, like job performance or work behavior and time perception. That sort of thing. Work ethic and time perception. There's job, again, down here, job, work, all those phrases and time perception. So it can just kind of help you think through, what am I really interested in? And what's out there to support my interest? So just by, 5 years, we just cut 500,000 results. I want to point out some other filters. It wasn't specified whether a scholarly journal was required. And you're going to see 2 things here. Scholarly journals and peer-reviewed. Those, they're often used interchangeably, but they're not the same thing. So, and I'm not sure, again, what's required for your assignment. To explain really, really quickly, a scholarly journal is going to include peer-reviewed articles, but it also includes other things. It includes often book reviews. It includes editorials. It can include job advertisements. So if you look at the scholarly journals, you'll definitely get those peer-reviewed articles, but you're also going to get all the other stuff. So if you're really looking for like a peer-reviewed journal, this is a peer-reviewed article. This is a little bit more precise. A peer-reviewed article is something usually written by a researcher, a professor, a scholar, and their peers in that discipline have reviewed it to make sure it's current. They did a really sound methodology that made sense with their conclusions, and it was new information. So that's why that's done. It's not the same as kind of peer review in a writing class with your peers. It's scholars kind of coming together as scholars and identifying what is good in their field. So I'm just going to focus on these couple articles because I want to show you actually what you do with the tools now. Oh, this one looks really interesting. Maybe I'll do that. So let me start with this top one. And in this top one, I want to point this out, not just because I think it's interesting. You get the title up here. You get the abstract, which is a summary of the article, and helpful to use if you find yourself doing a lot of research with really long articles. Read the abstract. It can help you make a decision a little bit more quickly on whether you want to spend your time on a 10-page article or not. This article, it gives you the references, but it's not available full text. If you wanted this article, you'd have to request it. Again, if you request in the morning, we usually have a 24-hour, maybe 48-hour turnaround. You would just request it, fill out the form, and we email it to you when it arrives. And we'll email it anywhere. If you have a Gmail you prefer to use or whatever, Yahoo, Hotmail, we'll send it there. It does not have to be your school email. References can be helpful because sometimes they are linked, so if it exists in the databases, you might find, it's going kind of slow. So I might give up. But I will say the references will often have links to other resources. And while we're waiting for that to load, I do want to point out, okay, you probably saw it. There's some other similar articles on the right-hand side. So here's an example. So this is a book, but you can see if this is available in the database, there's going to be a link to it. This is from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. Really fascinating. So, alters decision-making from psychological science. Really fascinating. Okay, so going back to results, I want to show you the second thing, and that is, let's go ahead to this one. The reason I'm showing you this one is because when it is available in full text, you're going to see the whole article here. You'll also see the PDF version. And with all of these, they should have a tool to help you cite. I imagine you're using APA, it's psychology, and you'll see a sample citation. Check with your instructor. They often do not want this retrieved from, but it varies. They generally do just want this part of the citation. And it's usually pretty good. I mean, it's computer generated. It's not perfect, but it's usually pretty good. If you were in a different class and they were using, MLA, which you find in humanities, you could click there, and it would convert it for you immediately, which is kind of cool. I hope that's helpful. It seems like some things came up. We weren't very specific. If we can definitely, get into this a little bit more. But a meaning of happiness, attention, time perception. But I'm hoping this is a good start. So again, call us, call me, email me. We're happy to help. Well, this is our favorite part of our job, actually, is meeting with you and students. So connect with us. It's what we look for. All right. Thank you. Take care and happy researching.